Hello everybody, happy Hogmanay, and here is a list of the best books that I read in 2021. So just a quick sort of thing just before I get into the video. Since it's Hogmanay and we're ringing in a new year and I've been away from YouTube for the last month or so, if you have noticed there was a period of a few weeks where I wasn't uploading at all, and then since then sort of, uploads have not been as regular as I would have liked. That's just because life caught up with me and I was very, very busy. Thankfully I am off for the next couple of weeks and I will have loads of time to film loads of videos and things. I basically just wanted to kind of make up for the fact that I've not been posting, so for the first 7 days of the new year, to ring in the new year, I will be doing a video every single day. Looking back at the year that's just gone with all the books that I've read, and looking forward to the books that I'm anticipating for the coming year. So I hope you stick around for those and I hope you enjoy them. To start off today, what I'm going to be doing is a list of the best books that I read in 2021. Now obviously this is a very personal thing, not all of them were published in 2021, so these are just the ones that I happen to have read then. And yeah, these are just some of the best books I think that I've read, to be honest. I was looking at my Goodreads, looking at my sort of stats from my Goodreads. I read 68 books, 27,117 pages, and apparently my average sort of rating was about 4 stars. So, I do always enjoy the books that I read. It's one thing I said when I think I started YouTube, is that actually, I don't often come out of a book being like disappointed or anything. That does rarely happen, although you know about it when it does, because I'll complain about it forever. So, I'm not surprised that I've got such a high average and stuff. So I have managed to pick from that all of my absolute favourites, and these are the ones that I've sort of come back to as the year's gone on, or when people ask me, oh, what's a really good book you read this year, I will recommend this one to them or something. So, these are just definitely the books that just have completely stuck with me as these are the best books that I have read this year. I started off trying to make it a top 10 list, but I think there's actually 11 or 12 on here, but I still managed to keep it narrowed down. So without any further ado, here's a list of the best books that I read this year. So we're going to start off with one of my favourite authors, and that is Akemi Dawn Bowman, and she released her book, The Infinity Courts. This is such a fantastic book. It's, Akemi Dawn Bowman is one of my favourite authors. Fantasy and sci-fi is my favourite genre and stuff, so the fact that she actually is now writing a fantasy series is so exciting, and it was so good. It had everything I love about this author's writing. If you don't know what The Infinity Courts is about, it's about this girl who dies just after her 18th birthday, after she's graduated school, and wakes up in the afterlife only to find out that it's been taken over by a sentient AI, almost like that world's version of Siri, basically. And she's now part of a group of rebels kind of trying to take down the AI. And it's sort of the human consciousness versus the artificial intelligence consciousness, and it's this really fascinating discussion about the cycle of violence, about AI, about the afterlife and stuff. It's really fantastic, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you like YA, if you like fantasy, definitely recommend this one for you, because I've read it twice already. The next book that I read that was really great was Elatsoe by Darcy Little Badger. This is such a fantastic book. It is about a girl who lives in a world where magic is real, and her family and she has the ability to bring back the ghosts of dead animals and stuff. And because of this, she also has a connection to human ghosts, so when her cousin dies, she sees his ghost, and he manages to tell her before he sort of disappears that he wasn't killed in an accident, it was actually a murder, and she and her family then go to the place where he was killed to find out if that's true and stuff. It's this really, really fantastic story about Native American sort of cultures and stuff in this sort of world with magic and stuff. It's absolutely fantastic, and if you haven't read it already, I cannot recommend it enough. I then read SISTERSONG by Lucy Holland. This is a fantastic retelling of an old English folk ballad, The 12 Sisters. It's about these sort of 3 siblings, one who just kind of, I don't even know how to describe this book. It's just so good. It follows these 3 sisters in sort of, 500 sort of AD kind of thing in England, and a really, really interesting story about kind of like old pagan traditions versus the kind of, influx of Christianity, and how that kind of wiped out a lot of the old pagan traditions and stuff. You've got really, really fantastic arc following Keen, one of the middle siblings, who goes on this really incredible journey of finding themselves and growing into the sort of, growing into the crown, growing into their heritage and stuff. Absolutely fantastic. And following the 2 other sisters as well. Cinna as well is the youngest sibling who just kind of wants to find love and romance. And you've also got, oh god, I can't even remember what her name is. The eldest siblings, or I read it back in May, I cannot for the life of me remember what the eldest sibling's name, Riva. And then you've got Riva, the eldest sibling, who has the ability to heal other people but cannot heal herself, and it's just this really, really great story of all these sisters and the journeys that they go on. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I recommend it to so many people. It's just so good. I then read The Marks Left on Her by D. Lebowitz. This is a fictionalised memoir, and the author actually happens to follow me on Instagram, which is kind of where I found out about her book, and it's just such a fantastic story. It's a story of a survivor of a sexual assault, you know, based off of the author's own life, but as she says, it is fictionalised, but obviously you don't know how much of it is fiction, how much of it is true, so I do take it as a sort of non-fiction memoir. It's a really great collection of poetry and prose and dialogue, all forming this woman's experiences with life, how men have treated her across the years, the Me Too movement, and how she felt alienated by how white that was, you know, and sort of almost this book being a sort of, you know, it's being voices of women of colour and stuff who were kind of overshadowed by that. It is such an incredible book. I almost cried when I read it. I do have a spoiler-free review for it, so if you do want to hear what I have to say about it, definitely go check that out. I do just say slightly more eloquent thoughts there. But yeah, if you're looking to get into non-fiction or something, I think I would definitely recommend it because it is a fictionalised memoir, you know, it does kind of cross that boundary between fiction and non-fiction. And yeah, it was just really great. I then read The Travelling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arakawa. This is a book that my sister gave me like 3 years ago, and I just knew going into it that it was going to be sad, which is why I didn't read it for like 3 years. I finally read it this year. I cried, and I love it. It's just such a good book. It's about this man who adopts this sort of street cat when it gets hit by a car, and needs to be looked after and stuff. He sort of takes it in until it's healed, and then after that he kind of just decides it'll stay. And yeah, and then he sort of stays with him for quite a few years until suddenly the man is unable to look after the cat anymore, and then he goes up and down travelling across Japan with this cat to try and find a new home for him with some old friends who he's reached out to. And when you get there, you know, it's all from the cat's point of view and stuff, which I find really, really fun. The monologue's really great. And when you get there, you know, you get the story basically of how this man knows this person and where they've gone from since they were children and how they've grown up and things and the lives that they've led. I do, again, have a spoiler-free review for this, definitely go check that out, but it's just such a great story. I love the point of view from the cat, and yeah, I cried, and I would read it again. Then read Blackwing by Ed McDonald. This was one that I just happened to pick up out of the library, and I saw a review by Megan's Reading Revelations, and yeah, I was just so surprised at how much I loved this book, just from the world building to the characters to the plot to just everything that was going on. I just absolutely loved this book. It was so great, and I really need to continue with the series because it's just been sitting in my head ever since I read it, but it was just such a surprise as well because I just wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, but I do, and it was just so good. I also read Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. This was something that I'd heard a lot of people on BookTube who I read the same books as sort of raving about and things, so I thought, okay, I'll go check it out, see how good it is. It's amazing. You know me, I love a good dragon story. This is probably one of the best dragon stories I've read for a while. You know, it was just so good. I loved the story between Annie and Lee and the dragon riders and stuff. You know, it's kind of set after the revolution has happened, and you're seeing the sort of regime, the new regime trying to be fair and trying to implement, you know, what it fought for and what it killed all the old regime for. But then actually coming into so many problems with that, especially with war looming on the horizon and stuff, and yeah, it's just such an interesting backdrop to then have this sort of dragon rider friends to lovers, and you know, this tension between these two characters who know things about each other that they probably shouldn't. Again, spoiler-free review up, definitely go have a look at that for more in-depth thoughts. But yeah, I cannot wait to continue with the series. I really need to get a hold of Flamenfall because I absolutely love the first book and I can't wait to continue it. Another series that I started this year was the Farseer trilogy, and of that I've read 2 books, the first 2, and I do actually have a copy of Assassin's Quest that I will be getting to, but of the first 2, my favourite was Royal Assassin. I loved the sequel to the Assassin's Apprentice, and I think just because, you know, it's got a lot more of the characters that I enjoy in it. You know, Ketriken has a bit of a bigger role in it, and you definitely see Fitz kind of coming to terms with kind of what's happening to him and things. You know, it was a step up from Assassin's Apprentice, which I loved anyway, but then Royal Assassin really introduces you to what's at play, what's at stake, and where it's going to go into the final book in the series. So definitely excited to read Assassin's Quest, but Royal Assassin is definitely in my top best books of the year. One of my favourite series of all time is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and part of that is because of the book that I read this year, As Good as Dead. This is the finale to the trilogy, and honestly it blew my fucking mind. I was not ready for how good that was going to be. It just wraps everything up so well. It all comes full circle to everything that's happened in the other 2 books. Everything's connected. There's almost like a sort of domino effect from these one or two things that happen. that then spread into everything else, and you don't realise how important they are until this book. Oh, it's just fantastic. I love the series so much. I have a spoiler-free review for the entire trilogy if you're interested. Definitely go check that out. But honestly, it's just such a great series, and As Good as Dead absolutely blew my mind. I just loved it so much. Another book that I keep recommending to just about absolutely everybody is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. It's just so good. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, but I'd heard a lot of hype about it and things. You know, I'd heard Elsa from the French Book Dreamer absolutely raving about it, so I thought, okay, you know, because he was all about. And yeah, it was incredible. And I wasn't expecting that at all. And it's just such a gentle, lovely story, and the main character is so sweet, and you just care so much about him, so when things start to happen, you know, you're really invested. I read it in like a day. It was just brilliant, and I just have no other words. It was just so good. Another book that I really loved this year was Iron Widow by Jiran J. Zhao. This was something that had created a lot of buzz online, since the author actually got quite a following from their YouTube channel and stuff, breaking down sort of Chinese historical influences in various films such as Mulan. And then they also promoted their book and stuff, and their book being a sort of Pacific Rim meets Chinese history, with the characters being reimaginings of actual people from Chinese history, such as Wu Zetian, who was the only female emperor of China, who was our main character. And yeah, I read this book in one go. I'm telling absolutely everybody I know to read it. It was so good. It's just such an amazing sort of rage against the patriarchy that I just really needed, and it just does some really interesting things with the blend of futuristic sci-fi with Chinese history, and oh, it's just incredible. I do have a spoiler-free review as well, definitely go check that out, you know, I do rave about it there. But it's just so, I don't know, it was fresh and it was fun and it was very, very fast-paced. It was just what I needed after off the back of a book that I really didn't enjoy, and it was just so good. Like, best book of the year. Honestly, one of my top 3, I think, of the year. And then just in the last couple of days, I read 2 more books that have actually made it to my top sort of list because I really enjoyed them. The first one being The Untold Story by Genevieve Cogman. This is the sort of, not last book in the series, but last part to the arc we've been following in The Invisible Library. The Invisible Library being one of my favourite books being one of my favourite series that I discovered last year. And The Untold Story is the 8th book in that series. And the author kind of says at the beginning that she is planning to return to these characters and this world, but The Untold Story definitely wraps up absolutely everything we have seen so far. You know, with the history of the dragons, the history of the Fae, and the history of the library, Alberich, and why he turned from the library so long ago, you know. It was such a fantastic finale. Like, I haven't finished a series in a while, to be honest, because, you know, I'm so bad at continuing series and stuff. I read a lot of firsts in series, but I don't actually read that many lasts in series. And The Untold Story was just such a finale. Like, so much was going on, the stakes were high, they tied up basically everything I wanted them to in such a satisfying way. It was well paced, the characters developed really well. Oh, it was just brilliant. It was everything I could have hoped for, and that is why it is on my list. And then last but not least, one of the last sort of top books I read this year is Midnight in Everwood. I was so surprised by this. This is a retelling of the Nutcracker and stuff. You're following Marietta, who wants to be a ballet dancer and stuff, but it's due to her parents sort of, you know, they want her to marry off and stuff, and Dr. Drosselmeyer moves in across the road, and he makes all these wonderful whimsical inventions and toys and stuff, and he seems quite taken with Marietta, and initially she falls for his charm and seems quite happy at the idea of perhaps marrying him, but sort of still torn between wanting to, you know, follow ballet and follow her passion, but then she sort of starts to realise that he's not everything he says, he's actually a hell of a lot more sinister, and then he traps her in Everwood, which is the sort of Nutcracker land, and everything kind of goes from there. It was just so beautiful, it was so Christmassy, it was so wintry, it was just so whimsical and magical, and I don't really know this tale of the Nutcracker very well. My only experience with it is the Barbie movie and the Disney movie Nutcracker in the Four Realms. But it was just brilliant. I really, really enjoyed it. Again, I read it in one go. It was just so well paced. The characters learned a lot. You know, Marietta's this very privileged character who thinks that she's quite progressive, but actually she still has a lot to learn. Just an incredible book. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. I think I gave it 5 stars. Like, oh, it's just so good. It was just so good. But that's it for me for this video. So those were the best books that I read this year, in my opinion. Have you read any of these? Definitely let me know down in the comments. Do you agree? Are they very, very good books? Or did you perhaps not like them as much? You know, definitely start a discussion down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the best books you've read in 2021? Let me know. I'd love to hear what you enjoyed this year. Look out for more of my videos. As I said, I will be posting daily for the next week. And feel free to leave a like, feel free to subscribe, because I'm going back to posting regularly. Once this week of daily videos is done, I usually try to post 2 times a week. But thank you so much for watching. Happy Hogmanay. I'll see you tomorrow.